I've decided to do something to make me utterly miserable. Yes, in KOTOR 1 and 2, we know people randomly dying can be a massive pain to deal with, so I decided, why don't I make this 100 times more inconvenient for me? What if when I died, I restarted the entire game? Yes, that's right, today I'm seeing Can You Beat KOTOR 2, but if you die, you restart. This challenge was actually so bad, I recorded it all the way back in July, and it's taken me over 3 months to recover in order to start editing this video. Now, a lot of you will be saying, well, I can beat the game without even looking and without even playing half the time. This is barely a challenge. Well, thanks to this lovely subscriber known as JTC5502, who commented all these lovely sets of rules we'll also be having to follow by the letter, it got just a little bit harder. But with the rules set out and the challenge laid out, I'm going to create my character, give it the world's coolest name for this challenge, and we'll be getting on with everyone's favourite planet, which is Paragus. Since this is a permadeath run after all, I decided I'll do whatever I can to avoid dying, so I'll be going full meta with a light-sided character, who then will use dark side powers. And naturally, I go through and meet my favourite man before I watch T3 just fucking die. This is my boy! And then I call Atanel for checking out my body. Like every run I do, I fix up my favourite droid so we can work our way through the battles of the planet together before I meet the lesser HK droid. My reward of getting through it quite quickly is I then get to watch the world's longest cutscene, and when I said quite quickly, I realise I'm probably about 25 minutes behind the speed running a world record for this game, which tells me I know absolutely nothing. My biggest fear of the entire planet is actually these turrets from my childhood, since I didn't quite understand them. Freezing me was a bit of a problem, so I used to just die a lot. You may be thinking I'm going through this quite quickly, there may be a good reason for that, and that's because Paragus is in fact quite awful. But with the pointless part of the planet out the way, we pick up Crow and Atom before fighting HK, which my characters blatantly ignored the instructions I previously gave them and tried to kill themselves early doors. This didn't set a good omen for the rest of the runs, as they're already trying to die, but if they were to die now, it's better than them dying about 6 hours into the run. In my previous challenges, one of the main places where people die is actually on the Harbinger, since I have a mod which gives the Sith Assassins lightsabers, which is one of my biggest comments because people always ask, why on earth do your Sith Assassins have lightsabers? And the simple answer is because I'm miserable and I enjoy dying to them. But the huge issue here is I can't die this run. So how am I going to circumvent the problem? Well, to quote a wise woman from the internet, I ran for my life and prayed they didn't get to my companions. Since once you go to the next area, they're not going to follow you, so as long as we got there, they wouldn't die, and I would be fine. The second half of the ship was a bit more scary since it's a bit tighter, and there was more room for my companions to get caught and for me to get caught on a Sith Assassin's body, but once again I squeezed through with no problems. My reward for getting through all this is I decided to sacrifice an old woman before collecting my pet's dog in order to leave Paragus forever in just over an hour of gameplay. Now on to what I consider the worst planet in the entire game, which is Tilos, and I juggle with the idea of bringing my companions along or not, but I decide I'm going to bring them along because I'm too weak anyway, and if I die, the run will be over no matter what. So I start with talking to the Frog Archist to extort him for more great KOTOR ideas before saving the droid and taking them back to his people. When I need to kill the exchange, I actually happen to do this in a record time, which is weird since I'm way more scared than I usually am, but I'm also thinking the fights for a bit more and not rushing into them like normal and actually taking my time and strategizing. And it turns out my character is just full of great ideas because I reward a gambling addict in debt with more money since he's only ever one win away. Afterwards I get to play the best droid in the entire game and send him to delete my browser history from the databases before leaving the planet. And whilst leaving the planet, the hammerheads do cry out to me, but I leave them to die since I'm not going to take the risk of dying trying to save them for no rewards. But if I thought the station was bad, my god, we all know the surface is going to get so much worse because I then get to have Beordur. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know he'll kill himself to mines, Canucks, or even suicide run to the Mercs at times. I have absolutely no faith, but I'm going to need to keep him alive. And the first thing I do is I decide to fight the Canucks off to the left in order to test how weak or strong he'll be, and the fact that he almost dies fills me with instant dread and fear. But as a wise man once said, and he's here to do some business with the big iron on his hip. And with those words, I slap my dick on the table and attack the group. And the swiftness of the Ranger is still talked about today, as I killed them all in my midst of celebrations. Beordur almost fucking dies to a green seal. I follow up that massive bit of fear by outsmarting a minefield before making my way to the main base. And once again, like this entire area, I'm instantly scared, but it's one of the best attempts I've ever had at this area before making my way into the base itself and meeting the game's big bad. Yes, I still hate this Twi'lek, and I always will. But I save him in record time for the Be'odor influence and all is going well. I was actually quite suspicious because it feels like it's all going a bit too well. After clearing out the base and killing the giant droid though, I get to go to the polar region, where Atton is blasted into a new dimension before we kill off the HK droids. In the academy, we meet our ex who is as toxic as when we left them, and before I try my normal shenanigans against the handmaidens, then they claim I fell off the mat and I'm locked out of the final fight completely, which again, more bad omens, which isn't feeling me good for the rest of the run. Before I leave the polar region, I do get to find my lost dog, and I get to go to the ship and bring in a woman who looks suspiciously like my previous love, before Atton and Be'odor decide to talk about their love for me. Be'odor being a white knight, I reward him by making him become a Jedi before I leave Tilos completely. Also, as a side note, Kreia here just decides to try and kill my fucking dog. But with that, we are on to the first optional planets of the game, and I decide to start with Dxun Onderon, because normally if I start with Nar Shaddaa, people start dying. And I almost fuck it up instantly by running too quickly through the jungle and people dying before I start doing the quest for Mandalore. As is standard practice, Be'odor almost dies whilst I'm doing the droid cache, and I save the Mandalorian by fighting off Vango's dog, who is resistant to all my powers, and Kreia gets a bit too low for my liking for this run. Afterwards, I run over and get the final converter piece before talking to Mandalore to trigger off the main quest. This triggers all the Siths to start attacking the Mandalorians, but instead of getting involved, I actually find the lens, and then I start building my lightsaber instead of getting involved in the fight, to avoid dying on my end. But once the lightsaber's built and we kill a Sith or two, we then make our way over to Onderon. And if you ever see me play this game before, you'll know I like to complete Onderon in record speed, since it's a very back and forth boring main quest. And it going quickly is ruined when I decide to save diplomatic Deadeye Duncan, because it triggers the Visas cutscene, so I've got to watch this play out. And then I'm followed up with a bit of horrible lag spike during my gameplay, which is weird because this game's 21 years old and my PC can definitely handle it. But once all those issues out of the way, it goes as quick as normal, running back and forth to complete the quest as quick as possible. And for the Visa quest, I decided to just do the light side route because obviously I'm a light-sided character and I'm just always going to do that. My reward for doing this somewhat quickly is I get to fight Visas before punishing myself by prestiging into the worst class in the game, because clearly I thought this was going to be far too easy. To lift my spirits, I repair HK-47, who can then repair my mental stability. With you guys, by you getting me to 1 million subscribers by tomorrow morning. That is exactly what needs to happen, and I know we can do it. From a planet full of life to a planet full of death, we make our way to Corriban next, because I think this is where I'm going to be pushing my luck the most, because I instantly decide to loot the corpses to spawn the things, before almost dying to the HK 50 units, which would have been my 13th reason why to do it once more. I've had about 50 of those in these challenge videos, and I need to think of better jokes. In the academy, for some reason, I was feeling pretty jumpy, since, well, I was actually quite scared for some reason. I couldn't explain it, it was just an ingrained fear in me that something was going to go horribly wrong. To settle my nerves, I 100% the Sith test because I'm one giant nerd before finding the Jedi and Science kink room. Obviously, people are ashamed of their kinks, and Sion decides he wants to kill me so his secret never gets out, but I do luckily escape with my life and the life of my companions. A reasonable man in this run would have just ignored the cave, but there's one thing I am not, and this is a reasonable man, and I decided to go straight in, but because I'm still so very weak, I decide the grenades are going to be my best friend here. Once I've dealt with my past, because that is the bit that somewhat scares me a bit more than dealing with the present, because in the present I decide I'm just going to get all of us to attack this poor old woman like the hero I am. But once again, I'm at a point where, well, I've died a few times previously, but hopefully I won't die this time when I confront future me and Revan. And future me does almost end current me, both in the game and in real life, because this is optional, and if I died here, my god, what a depressing moment it would have been. But I learned from my mistakes, and instead of fighting Revan head on, I adopt my favourite method of running circles and attack him repeatedly, and so eventually he dies. He dies just like my hope of ever seeing the KOTOR remake ever being made. I decide I'm going to reward myself by locking myself in a room with Handmaiden as we both take off our clothes and convert her into a child kidnapping cult, before I return to Dxun / Onderon again. On my return to Dxun, I send Be'odor, mainly because he can disable the mines, turrets and the droids, which clears out the entire section for me, so I basically have to do nothing except wait for everything else to kill themselves. But the good omens stop and the bad omens begin, because I go into a dark side cloud and instantly fumble it, and it punishes me instantly. And then I decide to do the puzzle boxes I have memorized, and the first box gives me nothing like normal, but the second one actually gives me some decent loot. But the bad things keep happening because the droid I previously fixed gets destroyed in front of my eyes, and I shed a single tear for him before I get 3 of Nar's blades in his own tomb, which was pretty cool. I do, however, beat the second Darkside Cloud before deciding to overdose on drugs and attacking the Sith like a meth head from Florida and just stomping them repeatedly into the ground. With the tomb done, I decided the smart option was going to bring T3 to the palace, because I don't know why I would ever do this to myself when the stakes are so high. But then I realised that this area is in fact so easy, since I was able just to stomp everything and have a nice relaxed time for the first time in this entire playthrough, because I didn't really feel like I was going to die. I then embraced my inner Robin Hood by stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, but the poor just happens to be myself by robbing the museum. I do some more puzzles because I'm in fact a whore for loot before I see that Kith has left me a surprise, which gets me very excited. I then confront my favourite side character, who's a grade 8 hater, before I get a little scared fighting the giant storm beast, which once again childhood me struggled with quite a bit. It's a pattern that emerges quite often, that maybe as a kid I was in fact an idiot. And I still am now, but I make videos on what I was an idiot about. But then I did something that disgusted me so much that I'd rather have lost the run earlier than have to have witnessed what I did here now. Since I forgot to give myself battle meditation, I couldn't do the battle meditation scene, which if you didn't know is one of my favourite scenes in the game, and I cried endlessly for hours before progressing into the throne room. I take my anger out on Vaklu, an innocent man in this, not in the fact that he started a civil war, but the fact that I just didn't pick battle meditation, and the Queen then decides to send him into the void for his crimes against the country. She brings up that the soldiers must have robbed the museum, as I'm clearly wearing what the museum had, as I'm wearing all the gear from there. But with that, Onderon is done, but before I go to the next planet, I decide to speak to HK47 to get some stat boosts to make sure I'm alive before I go to Dantooine. Dantooine. Name a bigger downgrade than planets from the first game to the second game, because his planet is very neglected in this one. It is on this planet where I learn light side HK47 is real, and there's a true fact that he can hurt you. I followed up by getting myself a pet rock and getting Mandalore to kill his fellow man for my own entertainment. Speaking of my own entertainment, after saving Joron in the Enclave, I get Beodor to build me a droid army, which fights the death against the giant beetles. It is here my reasoning for hating Disciple grows even more. Since I play modded KOTOR, I have the party swap mod, so when I adopt Disciple, it booted Handmaiden out of my party, leaving me as a dangerous duo instead of a lovely trio. Luckily for me, we only have the world's most pointless enemy left to fight in this area, and he goes down pretty easy. I follow this up by saving Master Vrook, who decides to degrade me for being an idiot, which I somewhat enjoy. I then awaited Conquest's arrival like the worm I am, where Handmaiden praises me and calls me a good boy, which then leads me to preparing Kunda for the defense. But more important than preparing Kunda was preparing myself mentally, because this is a big fight, and if one person goes down, it's over, and I am very stressed at this point of time that my hair has turned silver. But surprisingly, no one dies, and I'm thinking after 21 years that maybe I finally decided to get good at this game. Or maybe it's the countless hours I've put in this year to make myself miserable whilst playing it. Once inside, I deal with Askel, who goes down pretty easily when he says my force powers won't work on him, because they work pretty goddamn easily. But with one final lesson from Rook, that's Dantooine done, and the planet really did have a downgrade from the first game, but that just leaves one final planet to go, and my god, it was the longest. Yes, we have come to Nar Shaddaa, which is the longest planet, my god, by far, and it is where I saw that Lightside Mandalore and HK are very real, and they are very unsettling. But to enjoy Lightside HK, I decide to give him the care package, so he'll definitely care for the children, and it's still just as horrible every time I see it. After this, I see Atten throw himself at another woman, so naturally I decide to sell my body to a giant slug to deal with the pain I'm going through mentally, before following up with some dot quests just to get the red eclipse thing triggered. But like a sweaty little gamer, I swap out all my party members when I know it's about to trigger, so I can have the right people in for the fight. And just in case I wasn't miserable enough, I then ask Atten about his previous encounters with other women, just in case my self-esteem had any shred of life to it. My god, it's now gone. I decide to take out my anger on the Red Eclipse by clearing out the ship in record time, and with that, I'm locked into the main quest and meet my final companion. In previous challenge videos, the Atten fight against the sisters normally goes really poor, but once again, it's not really been an issue since I saved this planet till last, so I'm actually quite a bit built. Clearing out the Jet is pretty easy, because, well, force powers are very helpful here, and they're also broken in this game, but then I know at the end of this, I'm going to have to do the fight I'm fearing probably the most on this planet, which is Mira versus Honha, since, well, it has normally gone quite wrong, and I've died at least once in my previous playthroughs, but this time, well, it goes pretty goddamn well and I survive with no real hiccups. Moving on to T3 section, I struggle far too much with the door puzzle and was doing it for way too long, but surprisingly have another easy fight against the HK droids before having to do the fights back to the ship. I've died a few times again whilst in my previous runs, but that's when I do the planet first, and whilst doing it at this point in the playthrough, it's pretty easy, and I get through there just by taking my time and not rushing through head first. I decide I'm going to send Handmaiden HK up to the KOTOR pleasure yacht, and just like women, when I try and talk to them, Handmaiden instantly tries to end her own life. But the suicidal tendencies don't stop there, since after I free my exile and need to escape the yacht, HK decides to run off and starts dying, and that fills me instantly with fear, because what is he doing? You might have realised earlier I called Mira the final companion, and that's purely because in my notes and in my script I forgot that KOTOR actually appears after you destroyed his yacht, and he is the last real companion, which really says how forgettable he is as a person. But I talked to the final Jedi, who tells me about the pros of starting Movember, and with that, all the Jedis have been collected, and I can return to Dantooine to finish off the story. Naturally, once I got to Dantooine, I was spamming through the spacebar button to get through the dialogue as quick as humanly possible, because I'm going to be sat here for about 20 minutes watching cutscenes and dialogue play out between the Jedis, Kreia, Visas, Sire, Nihilus, the entire shebang. Whilst doing it though, I do watch all the Jedi just fucking die, before I then watch Sion also fucking die, before I tell Disciple to politely never speak to me again, and he follows it up by snitching, which adds to the list of reasons I hate Disciple. In the Polar region as Handmaiden, the sister fight is naturally the harder fight of the two, since when Atris decides to come out, I beat her down pretty goddamn quickly, and my exile does it in double the speed. And as always, after she runs off like a one smart enemy in the entire game, I track her down and beat her just as easily in round 2. But against my better judgment, I decide I'm going to keep her alive, mainly because I need the light side points, before returning to Tilos station, where I'm starting to pick up mines to scrape XP. I don't know why I did this, but I guess I must have needed it. My reward for wasting 30 seconds picking up mines is that the game makes me watch a cutscene which takes over 5 minutes, and it is actually the longest cutscene in the game, and it can't be skipped because it's in-game and not one of the movies. Whilst on the Ravager and placing proton cores, Visas decides to pray that this run will get us through Nihilus, and I know I'm praying just the same, because mentally I can't redo the past hours I've been spent on this game, and especially since I'm doing this 3 months later, I couldn't imagine redoing this now, because if it takes me another 3 months to make this video, my god, it's just never going to get published. But after all the praying and all the placing, I confront Nihilus and all my other challenges. Both Mandalorian and Visas die pretty goddamn quick, but not this run. My god, I managed to lock him against the wall and stun lock him before Visas goes, my god, he's just too strong. And I convince her to mentally break him, and then he shows he's a bit too strong, since clearly you can see in the footage he should be stunned, but he's hitting us with Death Field, so naturally I force push him again into the wall, and after another minute he is defeated, and my biggest hurdle is finally accomplished. This really was the point where I thought a companion will fall and it will ruin the entire playthrough, but surprisingly no one has died. I haven't died, not in real life and not in the game, which just leaves Malachor to go. Ah yes, Malachor, the planet where you can softlock yourself at the ending by not killing anything, so to avoid this problem I decided to kill every storm beast I saw, so I wouldn't have this issue and the remote wouldn't die naturally whilst we were playing throughout the planet. The Mira Honha rematch is just as easy as normal, since well everything for me is easy at this point and I just kind of stomp through him, just like I stomped through the giant storm beast. It's super easy and I've had no issues, and I think this endgame is going to go easy. Naturally I start doing the remote section where I know I've killed every beast, so there'll be no problems.
No. Wait.
As you can see, there were definitely problems, and when I ran into 2 different dead ends and when he chased after me, I was definitely shitting myself, but I somehow survived. But with that done, I get to the Asin fight with Sion, and you can guess which tactic I used. Yep, it's the same as the Revan one, where I just run in circles and attack from a distance until eventually he falls and I can escape. Whilst making my way through the academy with relative ease, I find armor I've never seen before, and well, the notes I just have for this was just read the description, so I'll just let you read it, and my god, I was right. In the Scion fight, he actually hits me pretty goddamn hard, but I managed to keep him stun locked with Insanity and Force Wave, and attack him from a distance, because there's one thing I am in this run, it is a coward, and I am taking no risks now that we're in the endgame. But after some casual female manipulation, I wear down his spirit and break his soul, and Scion naturally kills himself, instead of having to continue to talk to a woman, and that just leaves Kreia to be killed. In the past, she stun locked me with Choke and all other force powers, so I decided to stun lock her first by freezing her, attacking her, and then just keeping her locked in place for the first round. The first round goes easy, and then the second shows me she had over 1,000 health, which is kind of mental when I think about it. Like every run, I'll just run away so I don't have to deal with her and the lightsabers at once, and I loot the corpses just to see if there's anything around, and just for some funsies. But if you've never seen a lightsaber suffer with Insanity, here it is. They aggressively just start vibrating, and it's just a bit weird to look at. And that's what I was doing, my nerves were vibrating. I was shaking at my desk. This has been hours. It has been 3 months since I recorded this, but I still remember the fear I felt that day. There were 2 sabers down, and just 1 to go. It was either fight the saber or fight Kreia, and I knew I was picking the easy option by fighting the last saber. I knew it'd be fine, unless I physically collapsed at my desk, but luckily I didn't, and I inflict Insanity on it once more, and I watch it shake before I beat it down, and I can confirm to you that I have completed KOTOR 2 Permadeath Challenge, and I reward myself being whisked away by the great Atton Rand.